Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see y'all this morning. Go ahead and turn to Proverbs 22. It's kind of interesting standing here like a robot sometimes. I'm all like, do I interact with everybody? No, I'm kidding. Proverbs 22. Proverbs 22 and verse 1, the proverbial writer writes, "A good name is to be chosen rather than great riches, and favor is better than silver or gold." What do they mean? Good name, as he says, is to be chosen rather than great riches. He says, which one matters? Another version might read, a good reputation. It depends on what matters to you, what is important. Proverbs, as you know, is always written in this sort of way to help people gain wisdom. Often the wisdom of God that they see, and of course wisdom that's going to help them throughout the world. A good reputation, he says, is better than riches, better than silver and gold. He means this because he knows and he understands that a person is going to live and interact with people who are basing them off of that. It's not always going to be about your silver and gold, your riches, your intelligence, all of this stuff, but it is going to be about your reputation. And brethren, you already know that this is the case. A lot of times we don't like to deal with various peoples or entities if it has a bad reputation. You ever seen something with a 1-star review? You're like, I'm not going there. Why not? Why aren't you going there? Do you know that the food is bad and that they're overcharging and they have bad service? Do you know that? Have you actually been there? No. But you see a 1-star and you're like, they've got a bad reputation. That means somebody took the time to go there, experience their service, and then said, oh, this is so bad that I'm going to take more time to get online and to talk about it. To talk about it, of course, in the negative light. When you go to any of these places that have bad reviews, you're like, I don't want to go there, you know? And I sort of believe, I tend to automatically trust what I see when someone is leaving a bad review. I've left bad reviews myself about certain places. Maybe you have as well. And you think about why that is. You think about why do you leave a bad review, right? And what are you intending to do with that? Sometimes it's to inform other people, like, hey, be aware of this. This is what happens here. Like you might want to stay away from this, or don't order this, or don't talk to this person. Sometimes, out of anger, you're just like, oh man, I'm going to let everybody know, like, never to go here. They need to be out of business. Throw them out on the street, Sometimes, you leave good reviews. And good reviews, as you know, are to generate a good reputation. That's what we want. Recently, I left a good review for chess.com. 5 stars. And I said, be warned. Highly addictive if you love chess. And one of the owners of that app messaged me and was all like, glad you love our app. And I was like, well, thanks, man. Sometimes you leave good reviews. You'll leave 5 stars, right? And when you're leaving that, and when people see that, they're all like, oh, man, oh, yeah, I'm going to go there. I'm going to engage with this. It's unfortunate sometimes that you'll come across reviews that just aren't true at all. Sometimes they'll hype it up, say, oh, it's so good, everything's great there. You go there and you're all like, this is terrible. These people were lying. Was it a bot that said that? Was it a real human who said that, right? You'll come across all and different types of reviews. Now I want you to take a second, and I want you to think about the kind of review a person would leave for Elon. What kind of review would they leave you? I'm not going to lie, when I thought about this, I was like, oh man, what kind of review would they leave? What would they see? What would they recognize? What would they deal with? What would they know about us? Right? What kind of review would they leave? Now, as you know, our existence here isn't about reviews or anything like that, but it is something that we need to keep in mind. As the individual person recognizes that their reputation is important, so should the entities of Christ, the churches of Christ, understand and recognize that their name, that their reputation is important as well. Still speaking of the person itself, the ecclesiastical writer, Ecclesiastes chapter 10 and verse 1, says, "Dead flies make the perfumer's ointment give off a stench. So a little folly outweighs wisdom and honor." He says you can be a person of wisdom and honor and everything is looking good in your life, but that one time when you slip up and mess up, that's the thing people are mainly going to remember. It's not fair. It's not right that people do that, but you know that it's natural. It's what people naturally do. Naturally, they can look at all of the good things that you're doing. They can look at your living seemingly a life that looks normal, but then that one little slip up, that one little mess up is going to leave a bad taste in their mouth, right? Leave a bad smell in their nose, as the ecclesiastical writer is saying here. And so the person needs to be aware of that. And I think it would naturally apply also to a group, to a people, to an entity of God. Turn now to 1 Peter chapter 2. 1 Peter chapter 2. And what the Christian has to keep in mind is first and foremost the temptations that are out here in the world that tell you you do not need to be concerned with the reputation of your church. You don't need to be concerned even about your own reputation. You'll hear things like this all the time in the world. Only God can judge me means that I'm only concerned about how God is going to judge me and what He's seeing of me. I'm not concerned about how you're looking at me and how you're judging me. People will say all other types of things like, "Oh man, I'm all about God, but I'm against religion." What they mean in so many ways is, well, I'm only looking to what God is telling me to do. It's not all about the practices. It's not all about the worship. It's not all about that stuff. It's all about just me loving God and just loving other people. They don't know what they're talking about. A lot of people today and a lot of other things that are out here want to convince the Christian that you should really just be focused on yourself. You should only be focused on how you're looking and how you're appearing and really just about how you're feeling about churches and things like that. If that church isn't what you're expecting and isn't what you're wanting, then you should go somewhere else. If that church, you might catch a bad vibe or something like that, it's got a bad reputation for something, then you need to just get out of there. It's terrible. You should really just be so focused in on yourself that anything and everything that is outside of your expectations, that's outside of your comfortable emotions, well, you should just write off. You should just forsake. You should just forget. And I want us to keep in mind that there is some truth that the person needs to keep in mind how they're acting and behaving and what they're feeling at a different congregation or at a certain congregation. But we also need to recognize that it's not all about us. Not all about ourselves, right? Peter, writing to believers in 1 Peter chapter 2, we're going to pick up real quick in verse 12. He says, "Keep your conduct among the Gentiles honorable, so that when they speak against you as evildoers, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day of visitation. Be subject, for the Lord's sake, to every human institution, whether it be to the emperor as supreme, or to governors as sent by him to punish those who do evil and to praise those who do good." Now stop there for a second. The world has enough problems subjecting themselves to the various entities and authorities that are out here. But if you're paying attention, you can tell that a lot of places and a lot of people are telling folks they don't need to subject themselves to the authority of their church. That they don't need to subject themselves to the authority of their brethren. People have a hard time trying to submit to the government that is out here. And people are definitely going to struggle if they're listening to the world to submit to their brethren, to each other. He continues on in verse 15, "For this is the will of God, that by doing good you should put to silence the ignorance of foolish people. Live as people who are free, not using your freedom as a cover-up for evil, but living as servants of God." Peter puts it very clearly here that this is a group effort. That's what he's telling them. You're not doing this alone. You're not doing this by yourself. He's speaking to them in ways that he's addressing all of them. Right? Live as people. Not using your freedom as a cover-up for evil, but living as servants, plural, of God. He is speaking to them because he's saying you're going to have to work together to make sure that your reputation in your area is good. You want to be known for people who subject themselves to the authorities that God has established. You want to be known as people who subject themselves to the freedom of God, not using that freedom as a cover-up for evil, but using that freedom to be servants of God. Okay? Now we've got the main idea. Now go ahead and turn to Ephesians chapter 5. We know that this world is going to tempt us. We also know that there are a lot of things out here well within our lives and well just outside of this church, outside of this building, that are going to be trying to tell us to look more inward, to be more about ourselves, to be more about who we desire to be according to our own emotions and feelings and thoughts. And we also know that we are strongly told to work together as a group to make sure that we're seen as servants of God. Now I want us to hear from Paul. And Paul in Ephesians chapter 5 is going to say a lot of similar things that we read over there from Peter. But we're also going to see quite clearly, once again, the idea, the feelings, the emotions a person is to have when they are thinking about gaining a good reputation in the world. Not only personally, but as a group, as a church. In Ephesians chapter 5, picking up in verse 1, listen to the first thing he says. He says, therefore be imitators of God as beloved children. The person that is out here in the world ought not to think that, well, I'm just a product of my environment. I'm just a product of society. I'm just acting and living and behaving according to whatever. I still want to believe in Jesus, but I still recognize myself as a product of my environment. No. Your thinking must be different. Your ideas, your behavior must be different. How should they be thinking? Imitators of God as beloved children. Then he gives you an example, verse 2. And walk in love as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us, a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God. Basically, he's starting this off by saying, live like this. Live like this. Think of yourselves like this. If every Christian who's struggling out here in the world, who thinks, man, I'm facing these battles alone, I'm doing this alone, I've got to be focused more on myself, I've got to be focused more on just like how I'm feeling and what I'm doing. If every Christian took time to understand that they are one child of the children of God, and to see their brethren as brothers and sisters, and thus to walk, to live in love. I'm telling you, a lot of the problems that we face here in life just wouldn't be problems. A lot of the temptations we face wouldn't have such a hold upon us. And that's exactly what Paul is doing here. He says to walk in love. A lot of people will go on here and they'll talk about, yeah, man, it's just all about love. It's all about love. And you got to love. But he talks about a specific type of love here. As Christ loved us and gave himself up for us. A sacrificial type of love. So first things first, you see yourselves as children of God who are living a life of sacrifice. Okay? Now what if your brethren are known for that? That's a good reputation. That's a great reputation. That's exactly what I want Elon to be known for. That's exactly what we want every church to be known for. That they are imitators of God. And that they walk in sacrificial love. Live like this. There are some other warnings here. Look at verse 3. It says, but sexual immorality and all impurity or covetousness must not even be named among you, as is proper among saints. Stop there real quick. Did you see he gave you another name? Saints. First he said, beloved children, imitators of God. Now he says saints. Another reminder, first and foremost, of your true identity. Every Christian needs to recognize themselves as a saint. As a saint. As one set apart, sanctified by God giving his Holy Spirit to you to be holy, to be righteous, to be his child. Okay? Every Christian ought to see themselves like that. If that is true, if that's the case, if that's the reality, then what's the problem here? Sexual immorality and all impurity or covetousness, does that do well for one who has been sanctified, for one who has been set apart, for one who is to be righteous in the world? Obviously not. That's why he says you need to put away these things, because it is not proper among the saints. And a lot of these things have to do with, as you can tell, not things that you would naturally find well within the building, but things that are at home. These are the temptations you're facing outside of here most of the time. And you want to remember and keep in mind that sexual immorality and impurity, all of these things must not even be named, he says, among you. It shouldn't even be known. Name there is the same idea that we've been talking about this morning, about reputation. Your church should not have a reputation of people who are constantly struggling with this. People are going to struggle with it. And we show people how to be people of forgiveness and moving forward. But at the same time, your church should not be a church that is often, same person, same thing, struggling over and over and over, because what that does is that's just going to give you a bad reputation that you're not serious. It's going to give your church a bad reputation that they don't know how to deal with sin. It's going to make everything just look bad. And we don't want that. This is why the intention of someone who is here is to say, hey, I'm not to remain like a sinful person. I'm here to be a child of God. I'm here to be a saint, sanctified, set apart. I need to act and live and behave like I've been given the Holy Spirit. You understand? And so if that's the case, then I can't engage with sexual immorality. I can't engage with impurity. I can't engage with covetousness when I'm just wanting all of these things that I know is not mine. It does not belong to me. That is not to be named among saints. And so the Christian is to keep in mind at all times when they are not here, stay away from sexual immorality, impurity, covetousness. This is very difficult, as you know, nowadays, because a lot of people are online. When you're online, you get to see a lot of things. And a lot of times, your algorithm, as they'll say, will show you things that you tend to take your time on and look at. And so if you find your algorithm constantly showing you naked things, naked people, naked women, anything like that, something's off, something's going on. Now, that doesn't mean it's always you. Sometimes online will just show you online things. That's just how it is. But you need to keep in mind that because you're constantly going to be in front of all of these different screens, not just on these social media accounts, it could be on TV, it could be on the news, it could be all of these other places, where you're just engaging in all of this stuff that you know is making you impure. What should a saint do? And you already know. Turn it off. Get away from it. Cancel that account. Whatever is necessary. Whatever must be done. Right? Now what's so important about this is these are the things particularly that go unseen. People aren't really looking for all of this stuff. But some of this stuff, you know yourself personally, you've got to get under control. Because whether you're thinking about it or not, it's going to affect your brethren, and it's going to affect not only your personal reputation, but the reputation of your church. If I'm thinking about others, then that means I need to make sure that what I'm looking at online or what I'm coming across online has to be according to what God wants me to see. And I've got to be that serious about it. You understand? I've got to be that serious about it. As you know, the whole reason why God sent his son into the world was to deal with sins, to eradicate the works of Satan, as John says. Why would I engage in the very works that God saved me That's exactly what Paul is saying here. You've been sanctified. Live differently. Let's continue on in verse 4. He says, let there be no filthiness, no foolish talk, no crude joking, which are out of place, but instead let there be thanksgiving. For you may be sure of this, that everyone who is sexually immoral or impure or who is covetous, that is an adulterer, has no inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and God. I often think about this section here, especially verse 4, about how a Christian ought to behave at work. How a Christian ought to behave at work. Let there be no filthiness, nor foolish talk, no crude joking, which, he says, are out of place, which is along the same lines of what he meant when he says, it should not be named among you, which is along the same lines of what we're talking about this morning about your reputation. Plain and simple, when you're at work, when you're outside of this place, people tend to talk differently. We all do this. It's just one of those natural things. Sometimes we come here, and I don't want this to always be the case, but we might be talking like with our customer service voice. Like, hey, this is what I'm here, I'm talking nicely, I'm talking more professionally, and things like that. But really, when you come here, you need to talk like yourself, like you do every day. Which means every day that you're talking and speaking should be good, right? And out of your mouth should be flowing good things, gracious things, nice things. Now, as y'all know, I'm a character, okay? I'm going to be a character here, I'm going to be a character everywhere. That's just what it's going to be, right? And that's exactly what people ought to see with you as well. I know some of y'all are definitely characters, okay? I've seen some of y'all just, acting like yourselves, which is good, because that's what we want, because that's a genuine person. That means the way you're acting with me, you're acting the same way at work. And the same way you're acting with me or at work, you're acting the same way at home, which means you're the same all the time. And that means you're a person of integrity. You're the same. Not just about being the same, but you're good and the same. That's the point. That's what God wants. Okay? But when we're at work, we're often bombarded with other people who don't have the same ideas or the same standards. And they'll be talking in ways and joking in ways that are just out of place. I find myself getting in trouble, honestly, with this at work. Sometimes I will indeed engage with people at work. It's at work, and I'm thinking it should be fine. But I remember thinking a couple times, like, wait a minute. These people know I'm a preacher. Wait a minute. These people know I'm a Christian. Wait a minute. I've invited these people to my church. Wait a minute. These people see me differently. Now I get it. A lot of times we're like, we want people to just see us like normal people, like regular people. Is that what Peter was talking about earlier? Is that what Paul was talking about earlier? You're supposed to be seen as a saint, a child of God. Don't expect people to see you the same as them. Do you understand? I get it. There is this desire, though, naturally, to want to be like everybody else. But that's not who you are, because you are called out of the world by God himself to be his children. This is something I got to keep in mind while I'm at work. This is something you and I must keep in mind when we're at work as well. They're going to be joking. There's going to be a lot of foolish talk. You don't engage. Don't engage. It's out of place. I've kept my mouth shut at work a lot of times. I'm just like, no, I'm not going to say anything. A lot of times at work, they'll be whining about, a lot of political things and things like that. And I'm just like, it be like that. It is what it is. I have my own opinions about things, but I'm all like, look, man, when I'm here, when I'm around y'all, and when I'm around anyone, it's got to be good. It's got to be good. Because what if they show up to your church one day? What if you come across them just outside of work one day? What if you want to invite them over? What if you want to talk to them about God? You see what I'm saying? It's going to be a lot easier to talk about God with people who can tell that you're serious about talking about God. It's going to be a lot more difficult if they see, well, you just kind of joke and play around with me. You're not that serious, so why am I going to treat what you're saying as serious? Because you don't think it is. This is why it's out of place. This is why you and I ought to be serious about how we speak and how we interact with people outside of here. And that we're genuinely good, kind of folks, no matter the situation we're in. Look at verse 6. Let no one deceive you with empty words, for because of these, the wrath of God comes upon the sons of disobedience. Therefore, do not become partners with them. It says, do not become partners with the sons of disobedience. For at one time you were darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. A lot of times, I think, especially with this, different ideas on politics and things of that nature. No doubt there are conversations to be had about politics, but the Christian's behavior remains the same. Right? Doesn't matter who's in charge, what's going on, it doesn't matter. Your behavior remains the same. It says, let no one deceive you with empty words. You need to understand that all of these people who are out here doing evil things, they are going to be judged by God as sons of disobedience. Don't deceive yourselves by becoming partners with them. It is unfortunate that a lot of times, especially when political conversations come up or anything like that, people sort of just tend to go with the rest of the world. That is not to be known with the people of God, not to be known with Christians. You stand apart. You're different. As you know, in the political world right now, as you'll continue to see, there's just a lot of slander. Slander will continue. People do this all the time. It is unfortunate when you see your brethren sharing, talking about various slanderous things. And I've talked to y'all before about a certain brother that I know back in Tampa, Florida. I'm not going to mention his name. He knows who he is. And he would just post all of these things. Thankfully, he hasn't recently. Thankfully. There have been some years, like just years in a row, he's always talking about this, he's always talking about that, and it's terrible stuff. Okay, all these different conspiracies, all these different ideas. Oh, well, they deserve this and this and this and that. And I'm like, you're a Christian. I've messaged him personally about it multiple times. And then I've seen him in person. And let me tell you, he doesn't act like that at all. Completely different person. You're like, well, wait a minute. I thought you were some angry, getting ready to like murder people kind of, sort of. Nah, he's just a very nice guy. In person, you wouldn't think that. Now, based off of the things he posts, he has a different reputation. Right? His reputation is, man, I'm angry at the world. I don't like anybody. You come over to me, man, I'm likely to hurt you. Do something. What's going on here? But you meet him in person. Good to see you, Chris. Good to see you, brother. Grandma, I haven't seen you in a while. You know. We talk like it's nothing. Still kind of awkward, though, because I'm all like, you remember all those messages you be saying back and forth? Right? But at the same time, it's got a bad reputation. Because I often think, what are the members doing about that? What are the other members doing about that? They're friends with him. What are the other members? What are his elders doing about that? Are they doing anything? Do they think it's like it doesn't matter? Do they agree? Like what's happening? Right? What is it doing? It's giving off a bad stench. When you see someone who is constantly posting angry things or evil things, it's going to give them a bad reputation, and thus it's going to give their church a bad reputation as well. So, brethren, you and I have to be careful about the things that we post. We have to be careful about the things that we like on social media. Yeah, the world is different now, you know that. And so we're not going to allow Satan to sort of, trick us into thinking that, it doesn't matter. It does matter. It matters to a lot of people, as you already know. There are a lot of people, unfortunately, that I've seen leave the church based off of what someone is posting. And I'm like, man, why do that? But I get it. You can't be around two-faced people. Like, yeah, I'm super nice and whatnot in front of you, but online, I'm like this people, I'm a person of wrath, and I'm ready to destroy and devour. People don't want to see two-faced people. People want to see the genuine person that you are. That's what you're supposed to be. The person you are in person is supposed to be the person you are in line. You understand? And that person is to be a saint. That person is to be a child of God. So don't let anyone deceive you into thinking that those things don't matter. Your reputation matters. And so does the reputation of your church. So that means when I'm online, I got to be keeping this in mind. That means you've got to be keeping this in mind. And we've got to be only doing the things that are proper for saints. He continues here, walk as children of light. Walk as children of light. You see, that's another indication of what you are. Not just a child of God, okay? Not just a saint, a child of light. For the fruit of light is found in all that is good and right and true. It says that's what you're supposed to be children of. And try to discern what is pleasing to the Lord. Take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them, bring them to the light. For it is shameful even to speak of the things that they do in secret. But when anything is exposed by the light, it becomes visible. For anything that becomes visible is light. Therefore it says, awake, O sleeper, and arise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. The idea is that you're coming out of dead works into works of light. You're coming out of works of darkness that were associated with sexual immorality and foolish talk and speech, all of those things of the world, and you're living now as people, as children of light, who are concerned with the things that are true, who are concerned with the things that are right, who are concerned with the things that are good. You understand? And when every Christian here takes that into mind, takes that into account, personally, and we do that for each other, I mean, man, our church is definitely going to have a good reputation. Now, as we finish up this idea of reputation, I also want you to keep this in mind. That reputation, and when we're talking about that, isn't always concerned with, and honestly is rarely concerned with, how the people of the world see us and how they judge us. And I would ask you to take some time reading through Revelation chapter 1 through 3 to recognize the reputation that those churches had and who they were serving. Elin here is serving Christ. When we are being concerned about the kind of reputation we have, we are mostly, first and foremost, concerned about how God sees us. You understand? That's what this is all about. We want to be seen as good and true and right in the sight of God. That's the plan. And so when every Christian here is concerned with that, then we will have a good reputation in the sight of God. And that's what we want. Your prayer is often that this building is filled up. Your ideas, your wants, and your desires are that more people come here. Mine too. We are one in that. But we've got to be one in how we show ourselves out here in the world. You understand? Those two things are not separated. They are one and the same. You want people to be here. Be the kind of people that attract people who desire to be godly. May we continue to do the work of God in the world. May we continue to be children of light, so that we can be here as the Church of Christ with a great reputation in the sight of God. That's the plan. Now, my brethren, you are saints. You are children of light. You are imitators of God. You are children of God. And so we have a plan to do and a life to live. May you live that life according to your Father who is in heaven. Seek the things, as Paul said there, what is pleasing to the Lord. And any of those things that are not pleasing to him, forsake, forget, and forgive. Let it go and be the people of God. But I know all the times that's not going to be what's going on in your life. Maybe you're like, look, man, I can get this reputation thing down. I'm going to work on it. We got it. It's solid. It'll be good. That's the plan. But I've got some other things going on. Well, we're also here to talk about those other things. What else is going on in your life? Okay? Because we don't want to just be known as people who take care of each other. We are actually going to do that very thing. You see what I'm saying? So give us a chance to do that. Give your brethren a chance to prove we are the people we say we are. If there's something going on in your life, my brethren, anything, that's why we're here. To make sure you're good. Okay? If there's any sin, any habit, anything that you know needs to be known, needs to be dealt with, needs to be helped, let your brethren know and help us to be those kind of people, because we can show you through Christ. So if there is anything, my brethren, let it be known now as we stand and as we sing together.